Some exciting news, Star Trek IV will be happening very soon. Now, it is important to note that Star Trek IV is separate from two other exciting Star Trek projects that are currently in development. The first is a prequel movie helmed by the talented director Toby Haynes, which promises to explore the early origins of the beloved sci-fi universe. The second is a spin-off from the popular Star Trek Discovery series titled Section 31, which recently wrapped up filming in March 2024. Now, we will likely see both of those movies before we see Star Trek IV, but at least it should be released one day. But while we wait, here is everything that we currently know about Star Trek IV. Is Star Trek IV a sequel to 2016 Star Trek Beyond or a reboot? Paramount Studios is at a crossroads when it comes to the next Star Trek movie. They are facing a tough decision. Should they move forward with Star Trek IV, the sequel continuing the story from J.J. Abrams' rebooted Kelvin Timeline movies? Or should they take a bold new step and completely reboot the Star Trek movie franchise from scratch? Many Star Trek fans have been patiently waiting for Star Trek IV to happen, as it would be the fourth film continuing the adventures of the cast from the 2009 Star Trek Into Darkness and beyond. However, this project has faced many delays and setbacks over the years, despite reassurances that it is still moving ahead. At the same time, there are rumors that Paramount may be considering a full reboot instead. While the 7-year gap since Beyond does seem long, other sequels like Top Gun Maverick prove that time gaps do not prevent success. But rebooting a franchise so quickly also has risks, as seen with franchises like The Amazing Spider-Man. Interestingly, even though actors like Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto are eager to return, Paramount may lean towards a reboot over Star Trek IV. A reboot raises questions. How could they revisit the origins of Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise when shows like Strange New Worlds already explored all of that? Recasting iconic roles like Kirk brings immense pressure. Now, on the other hand, a Star Trek IV sequel with the current cast could explore the aging crew, reflecting on their legacy, drawing from storylines like the one with David Marcus in Wrath of Khan. Ultimately, many fans believe the potential of the Abrams cast remains untapped, making a full franchise reset rather unsettling. The decision between sequel or reboot has major implications for the Star Trek cinematic future. As Paramount focuses on the next movie, a crucial question remains: Star Trek IV or a total reboot? Why Star Trek Beyond hasn't had a sequel in over 8 years? Well, it's been about 8 years since the last Star Trek movie, and Star Trek Beyond hit theaters back in 2016. But getting a proper sequel off the ground has proven to be an incredibly difficult struggle with countless stops and starts along the way. Multiple different script ideas for Star Trek IV have been attempted, but none were actually able to make it into production. One version wanted to bring back Chris Hemsworth as Captain Kirk's father through time travel for a To Kirk storyline. Another script was co-written by Quentin Tarantino as an adaptation of the classic 1960s episode, A Piece of the Action, about 1920s gangsters. However, issues like reported pay disputes with the cast derailed ideas like the To Kirk's movie. And for whatever reason, Paramount could never pull the trigger on moving forward with Tarantino's or any of the other scripts. Part of the hesitation seems to be that Star Trek Beyond, while not a flop, did not perform as well at the box office as Paramount had hoped. As Chris Pine has indicated, the studio wants Star Trek to compete with massive Marvel-sized blockbusters. But none of the Star Trek IV scripts so far have inspired confidence that they could reach those heights. Ironically, the struggles to develop a big enough script worthy of that ambition led director Matt Shakman to depart Star Trek IV to instead take on Marvel's Fantastic Four reboot. Now, a script was in the works from writers Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson Dwaret, which producer J.J. Abrams said captured the spirit of his 2009 Star Trek film, but then the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes brought even that version to a halt. Now, Paramount had initially targeted a 2023 release for Star Trek IV before abandoning that date long ago. So finally, after nearly 8 years of constant script rewrites, director changes, and stalled developments, writer Steve Yockey was hired in March 2024. Paramount is calling his script the final chapter for the cast of the recent reboot Star Trek movies led by Chris Pine. Star Trek 4 cast. Who is going to be in Star Trek 4? While Star Trek fans have not seen the cast from the 2009 reboot movies on the big screen in over 8 years, there is still a lot of love and nostalgia for that ensemble. However, getting them all to return for a fourth film in that rebooted timeline has proven extremely difficult over the years of development struggles. Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. Despite being the lead actor playing Captain Kirk, Chris Pine remains completely in the dark about what's actually happening with the long-delayed Star Trek IV movie. When news broke that a new writer, Steve Yockey, had been hired to work on the script, Pine was surprised to learn there wasn't even a finished script yet. Like fans, he is just having to wait and see what happens. In an interview, Pine expressed his confusion, saying he thought a script was already done before this new writer came aboard. As he put it, "I honestly don't know. There was something in the news of a new writer coming on board. I thought there was already a script, but I guess I was wrong, or they decided to pivot. As it's always been with Trek, I just wait and see." So if it ever does come to fruition, we would be surprised if it was with a brand new cast. You can likely then expect the returns of Chris Pine as Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Zoe Saldana as Uhura, Carl Urban as Bones, John Cho as Sulu, and Simon Pegg as Scotty. Now, the actors like Urban have expressed interest in reuniting, but it remains uncertain if deals can actually be struck after so much time has passed. An earlier ill-fated script involved time travel to team Pine's Kirk with his father, played by Hemsworth. Now, while that concept was scrapped, Hemsworth seems open to participating again. But one lingering question is whether the role of Chekhov will need to be recast following the tragic death of Anton Yelchin in 2016. Star Trek IV plot. What is going to happen in Star Trek IV? Right now, we don't have any confirmed plot details for the fourth movie, and it's not clear how closely it'll follow on from the ending of Star Trek Beyond. The third movie ended with Kirk declining the promotion to Vice Admiral and staying on as the captain of the USS Enterprise. Spock also chose to remain in Starfleet and reignited his romance with Uhura. As the movie ends, they're all set to continue their mission on a brand new USS Enterprise after the previous one was destroyed during the movie's events. It means that the fourth movie can really go anywhere. But for Pine, he believes that whatever the plot is, it should not try to compete with Marvel. I've always thought that Star Trek should operate in the zone that is smaller. You know, it's not a Marvel appeal. It's like, let's make the movie for the people that love this group of people, that love this story, that love Star Trek, he said. When could Star Trek IV be released? Can you believe Star Trek will be 60 years old in 2026? The famous science fiction TV show first aired on September 8, 1966. After 6 whole decades, Star Trek is still going strong. Now, the biggest part could be the new movie Star Trek IV hitting theaters in 2026. This new film would bring back Captain Kirk, Spock, and the crew of the USS Enterprise from the alternate timeline movie. Releasing the movie in 2026 would honestly be perfect timing to honor Star Trek 60 years. Just like how the franchise celebrated its 30th anniversary with a special crossover episodes in Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager, this new movie could be the ultimate tribute to 6 decades of boldly going where no one has gone before. Paramount developing second Star Trek movie in parallel with Star Trek IV. Another new Star Trek movie is on the way. According to reports, Paramount Pictures is working on a brand new Star Trek film that will expand the Star Trek universe that we all know and love. Now, the exciting news is that J.J. Abrams, who produced the 2009 Star Trek movie, is involved again as a producer. And they have hired a very talented director named Toby Haynes to bring this new adventure to life. Haynes has been praised for his work on shows like Andor and Doctor Who. But here is where it gets really interesting. This new Star Trek movie is going to be an origin story. That means it will explore the early days and beginnings of the Star Trek world, taking place decades before the events of the 2009 Star Trek film. So it does seem that this origin movie will likely be set in the same alternate universe, or the Kelvin Timeline, as the 2009 film, assuming it happens after the attack on the USS Kelvin starship that started the whole alternate timeline. To write the script for this exciting origin story, they've brought on Seth Grahame-Smith, who has worked on movies like Lego Batman and the upcoming Beetlejuice 2. Now, while many details are still under wraps, one thing is clear. This new Star Trek origin movie promises to boldly go where no Star Trek story has gone before, expanding the universe in thrilling new ways. So stay tuned for more updates. Now, one fan said, "No reboot. We have a perfect cast. It would be crazy to switch to new actors. Totally unacceptable." Another one also said, "I remember when Jar Jar Abrams said he wouldn't tread on Star Trek shows and movies with what has already been done. He then makes the second movie about Khan." Now, as we await for a trailer and a release date on Star Trek 4, be sure to click on this link and watch Strek, Strange New World Season 3. New details will have you shocked.